Hello, everyone, and welcome to From the Basement Up. Today, I have Tom Adamczyk, and we are here to discuss planteddetroit.com, hydroponic farming, and planting inside, and how Tom started this venture. And Tom, if you don't mind, I just want to start, tell us a little bit about you, like your background, and then I want to talk about the business and how you started going in that direction.
Okay. Well, thank you for having me. I know it's been a rough morning. I've had those. Certainly have had websites and certain issues go on, and I understand the fire drills. So a little bit about myself. Where to start? Grew up in, just south of Detroit. Have always lived in Michigan. Went to the University of Michigan, Ross School of Business. Got my BBA there. Worked in investment banking for a couple of years out of Southfield, Michigan. Company called Stout Recius Ross. A lot of good experience working for different companies, public companies as well as large private companies. Got good experience in the capital markets and working on mergers and acquisitions. So that was kind of how my career started. And then I moved into private wealth management as a portfolio manager and trading equities and options. It's been kind of a whirlwind of the last 14, 15 years. I've got a family. I've got 4 kids. So it's been work and life the last 15 years. And really the last 4 years is when Planted Detroit was born. And I've been building that up ever since.
Going to hydroponic farming from, the investment world, and it sounds like you had like a traditional business background. How did you make that leap?
It's a really good question. I kind of think back, hindsight is 2020, and how did this all come about? There was a bit of an aha moment at one point before I did it. But it was really years of, studying markets, studying the industry, and really, when I say the industry, the food supply chain. I worked, in my previous career on some food distributors. I worked with some grocery stores and got to see some of these larger public companies, the back ends of their business and where they were not making money. That was kind of the beginning of, me thinking about the food supply chain and how we move our food, how we, as consumers, are paying higher and higher prices for lower and lower quality food. So I really started thinking holistically about, the food supply chain and seeing the cracks and the issues with it. I also, in my investment portfolios, have the opportunity to invest in farmland and lease that farm to farmers. And it's been a great investment opportunity as land prices have been increasing over the years. However, I get to work with the farmers and see their P&Ls and see how they're getting by, and they're not making a lot of money, at least not the smaller farmers anymore. But what they're spending a lot of money on is fertilizers. They pray for good weather and they pump chemicals into the soil in order to hopefully get a yield to get by.
Yeah.
And so kind of seeing some of these components really made me think and want to do a deeper dive into alternative growing methods. So this was probably 2015 that I started researching hydroponic growing indoors, and ultimately came across vertical farming as a potential and economically viable solution. And so it was a couple of years of research, talking to people within the CEA industry, or the controlled environment agriculture industry, trying to understand, what are some investment opportunities here. And so I looked at some companies in the space. I talked with people at, Techstars that had looked at hundreds of these companies. And what it came to the realization of is that they're all super risky. It's not proven. They're very immature in a lot of ways. They're figuring things out and learning as they go, and nobody's doing it profitably, which is important. There was that aha moment that I mentioned, which again, in hindsight, it was a a moment at 3 a.m. when I'm sitting up thinking about all of these things and trying to put all the puzzle pieces together. And there was a couple of, big news articles that hit at the time where there's a large vertical farming company called Plenty that raised, I don't know, $400 million from SoftBank and backed by Jeff Bezos. And then, so they were the biggest at the time in terms of money raised, and it hit the headlines. So, that was the first indicator that, all right, this is a real space. There's some serious investment coming in, and I should participate in it. And then Amazon made the acquisition of Whole Foods. And I'm thinking, that's interesting. There's a shift to online shopping and e-commerce. There's a shift in consumer behaviors and how they're shopping for their food, and then also what food they want to eat. And this is an interesting acquisition that Amazon's making. So maybe there's some shifts going on that, longer term, I could build a facility that could, supply food directly to the consumers. They could buy right from us. And the only way to do that is to grow it in their market. And the best way to do that is in an indoor environment, especially in Detroit, when we pretty much have snow on the ground 6 months out of the year. So pretty short growing season here. And so that's what ultimately spurred it. And I started it as, hey, if I'm going to get into this risky business, I want to be really involved, and I want to see it, and I want to learn it and do my due diligence as I grow it. And so that's how it started. We moved into a 20,000 square foot warehouse in Detroit in 2018, kept it close to home so I could be involved, and started building out the teams. And really the first couple of years, definitely the first several months, was figuring things out as I suspected. Learning what you can grow, how to grow it, testing technologies that exist, a lot of research and development. And ultimately, the team, they were able to grow 66 different varieties of lettuces and herbs and microgreens. And it tasted good. That was my biggest concern is it going to taste like soap? What is this going to be? So we started working with chefs. We started working with the culinary community and perfecting the taste profile of the crops. And then I sat on the data side and was able to analyze, the time from seed to harvest and all of the inputs, and build an economic model around all of these different varieties that we could grow inside all year round.
I love that you're taking the business side and the business approach to this. Tell me about the business. When did it start? How did, obviously you bought a building. Yeah.
So I was fortunate enough to be able to fund everything to date through my own investment company.
Okay.
It's part of the portfolio that I grow. So yes, I took the business side of it, but I think what's really important is the people that I surrounded myself with. There's 5 members of our leadership team, and they all have different backgrounds and experiences than I do. I certainly bring the business and analytical side to things, and of course the financing, which is important. But the other members of my team have the plant science, the horticulture, the microbiology backgrounds, as well as grocery and food. And so combined, we sit at the table together and we can problem solve together from different angles. So that's what we've done for the last 4 years is sit together and problem solve. We look at everything from every direction, and we pick it apart. And that goes down to every crop that we grow. We have gateways that we have to work through. There's certain crops that we won't grow because it doesn't make either economical sense, or it doesn't make horticultural sense, or it's a big food safety risk. We look at it from all those angles, and what we ended up doing over time is learning how to grow and perfecting the grow recipe from the horticulture side, testing LED lights, and it's really fascinating technology that you can change the growth profile and the taste profile of these plants. And so we were
wait. Go back really fast to the taste profile. I want to hear about this part. Where did you start with some of these, and then what did you have to do to make them taste better?
Okay. So early on, we were creating some greens that were extremely spicy.
Okay.
And it was because, you can change the environment that they're growing in order to generate different taste profiles. So produce different sugars and just treat the plant differently. So changing the temperature and humidity and something called VPD, the vapor pressure deficit. And these are things that I didn't come to the table with. These are things that I learned all about through the process. But you can change the lights, so from red versus blue light, or the intensity of the lights. So it changes the photosynthetic transmission of how the plant is living and breathing.
That's cool. It's so cool. It's mind blowing. It's really, really awesome. I love this.
I appreciate that. It is fascinating.
Absolutely. So, okay, you're doing a lot of greens, and I know you had mentioned there's some food it doesn't make sense. What food is that? And do you see an evolution where it will be a possibility?
Yeah, really great question. I'm going to have to single out one that I'm not quite sure how people are growing it indoors in a controlled environment. I just don't understand how they're doing it economically. And that's strawberries. We grew them very early on in Planted's history. And the reasons why we didn't go after it at that time were the time it takes to grow, the amount of electricity you have to pump into the plant, and just the nature of the plant. Like the fruiting nature of it was really difficult to build kind of the economic model around. You just don't produce enough strawberries off of a single plant in order to make it worthwhile unless you sell them for a price that's worthwhile. And I think that's what we see in the marketplace right now is the folks that are doing it, they're selling, 6 or maybe a dozen strawberries for $25 to $50, which that can only be afforded by certain people or are utilized by certain chefs in very unique situations. So right now, it's a very niche market. The economics just aren't there yet, but they can get there over time.
Okay.
That's what I study is the economics are there for, in my opinion, value-added products. If you can grow and create value-added products that consumers love and they're willing to pay a little bit higher premium for, that's the space we're living in with ready-to-eat salads with dressings and other toppings that we don't grow, making these beautiful products that people love. But the economics will change over time because the technology continues to get better. The lighting technology has improved significantly even in the last 4 years. The upfront costs are coming down and the efficiency is going up and the economics really work. And that's one of the biggest costs in our P&L is electricity.
Okay. So do you see, do you have solar going on your building and everything else?
No, we currently don't, but definitely as we're building out future farms, it's something that we're considering. Solar is a tough one because you do need a lot of space for it. Our buildings draw a lot of power, and so we need a big solar field in order to do it. So we are exploring it for certain aspects, but really looking at it from a full sustainability picture. Where are we drawing power from? If we're pulling it from the grid, where is that coming from? Is it coming from renewable resources? And then there are some technologies that we're exploring that we could have systems on site that generate enough power to run our facility, all within our own control.
Okay. It's just so cool. I love it. And I love that you have this team of people and everybody brings something to the table in the business. Are you thinking about franchising? Are you thinking about expanding into other towns? Or are you like, nope, we're going to just do this one really well?
So far, it's do this one really well.
Okay.
We're fortunate to be really the first mover in the Detroit market. We have an opportunity to build our brand, which is really important. We have an opportunity to be a part of the community that we're built in. We can help build the community around us, the small businesses. We have opportunities to partnership with other small businesses, and we do that. So that's our laser focus is to stay and nail Southeast Michigan. We can grow in Detroit, and we currently distribute about 30 miles from Detroit. We do all of those deliveries right now by ourselves with 4 or 5 vans that run routes every day. And so, yeah, that's going to be our focus for now. The future will definitely have, different plans, but that's part of the journey. I have, a plan A, but there's also a plan B and C. And I don't know which direction it'll ultimately go, but I do know that, we have the right building blocks, the right components right now to really scale this thing. And we've got the right people and have done building the teams that are important for the foundation of that.
Okay, I get really excited about this. So when you're all together and kind of talking through this, where you're the visionary. So where could you see? I know that you're kind of maybe playing it down, but where could you see this going, like in 20 years?
To be honest, we have to be a lot bigger at that point. And I don't mean just us, but the industry overall.
Yes.
We're going to have to find a way to grow food better and faster and safer. I think that's the key component, is safer. We're seeing people getting sick, people even dying from eating lettuce. They're eating a salad. They're trying to be healthy.
Yeah.
And they're getting infected by things like Listeria and E. coli because of the way in which we've been setting up our food system. It changes hands way too many times. It sits on a truck, it sits in a distributor, it sits on a grocery shelf, and it deteriorates that whole time it's sitting there. So by 2042, we need a network of farms like what we have, a distributed network.
So this is just kind of always been my dream. I drive by, I'm older than you, so I'm like a kid. In the 80s, I was always at malls, I was like a mall rat. So I was always there. And I've always wondered, I'm like, what if we turn those into farms? Like, is something like that possible? Could we get there someday?
Absolutely. It's possible. It's the path to get there.
Okay.
Does it make sense? So I've already considered malls.
Oh, really? Okay.
I have a brother-in-law that's in the mall industry. So his company owns some of the largest and best malls in the world. And there's a lot of malls that aren't very good. And those are C-level malls. And that's valuable real estate for something like us, like where we grow vertically. We're able to take a single square footage, which in a retail space is, they're just trying to manage their retail inventory. Whereas we're able to turn that into multiple levels of production space.
Absolutely.
So it's definitely possible. It will be interesting to see how some of the real estate will be repurposed over time. We started with repurposing, and there's a lot of pros and cons. There's costs that go with, we're in a 130-year-old building, and we've essentially had to rebuild most of it.
Oh, wow.
So in terms of future farms, there's going to be always that cost benefit analysis of, buy something and repurpose versus build something new.
Because you've gone through this learning process and you have this advisory team, this team of people that you love. Do you ever see your team becoming like advisors for other companies who are wanting to launch? And could you expand your services that way? Could you see that happening?
It's a great question. I don't know for sure. We do love to talk to people, either in the industry or outside. In particular, small businesses. So recently we all got on a call with a small business out of Grand Rapids. Somebody that's standing up a small vertical farm, and we're going to just offer our information, right? Our learnings from the last 4 years as they're in maybe their first year. One critical component is the food safety aspect, and making sure that you're taking that very seriously early on, because it's a different component than growing outside. There's a lot of food safety issues with growing outside, but as soon as you bring it inside, you've got a lot of water, you've got a lot of things that can grow some nasty things. So you really got to watch what you bring into your farm. And so that's one aspect that we've started to advise other small businesses about. If you're going to enter the space, I want to make sure your food is safe, and I want to make sure you're giving your customers, and they want that too, right? They just don't know how to do it. Because if a lot of these farms start to pop up and they don't take food safety seriously, it's going to be bad for all of us, right? It can become a stigma on the industry, and that will make it harder for Planted Detroit to grow and everybody else in the space.
That's a really good point. That's a great point for people who are starting out on their own, hiring you as an advisor, giving classes, that type of thing.
Definitely open to it. This is for any, young business owner. Any business comes down to like focus and priorities. Mm-hmm. There's only 24 hours in a day. And, I've been at this venture of Planted Detroit for 4 years, and there's some bags under my eyes. You get tired after a while, and everybody on the team does.
You do.
So it is a grind. And so focus and priority is really important. We are getting better at that. And I think, in terms of what we want versus what we can do, it's always weighing that. We want to be able to teach this. We want to be able to talk to, other business owners, or even just people that are interested in maybe a career in the ag tech space. And so we've started a few things locally with our community development team, where we're bringing mini hydroponic systems into local schools or local community leaders. We've got a partnership with the Detroit boxing gym that has a lot of youth within our community, and they can come in there and learn from us what hydroponics is. But so the learning, the teaching, and the education component is very important to us. We're going to develop, more strategies over time. We have plans for a future farm that would allow the public to come in and take classes and learn and be hands-on with the types of systems that we're working with. And all of that is in an initiative to develop a workforce, train and develop this workforce so that people can build careers in the industry. I really see that being a big component over the next 20 years. Not only will these facilities start coming online, but we need people to run them. We need people to manage them. We need software developers. We need, a lot of different spaces. We need tradesmen. We need electricians, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, a lot of different aspects of this business.
Okay. So you started 4 years ago. Tell me what you started with 4 years ago, and then where are you now?
Okay. It was a blank slate. Walk into a 20,000 square foot empty space.
Oh my gosh. Were you scared at all?
No, it's exciting. It's invigorating, right? That was the honeymoon of like, all right, let's do this. We're going to crush this. We're going to scale in the first year. And, no, that's not what happened. What ended up happening was 4 years of grinding and figuring it out and developing systems and processes, and making a lot of mistakes, but make them while you're small. We walked into a 20,000 square foot warehouse, but really just started in 10% of it, 2,500 square feet. And that was our R&D, figure it out in a small space. And while we figured a lot of things out in that small space, we designed the full 20,000 square feet. And so 4 years, fast forward, what we have now are automated systems. We have racking systems with elevators that move the plants up to the top of the building. And as they grow, it moves it like an assembly line all the way down, where it moves down an elevator and into its harvest room.
One question, the racking system, did you design that? Did you create that?
Yes, it ultimately had to be created along with some partnerships. But we brought, the plant knowledge to the table, and then worked with some outside engineers and designers, and all the tradesmen in order to bring it all together.
Awesome.
So yeah, massive racking system with automated components. And again, thinking the reason for that investment was, hey, we realize that one, we want our workers to be safe. We see other people in the industry moving up and down on scissor lifts. We don't want that. Also from efficiency perspective, from a food safety perspective, not having people touching things. And just generally what we tested early on was this particular grow system produced the best results for the leafy greens that we wanted. So we built all the components around the plant. What did the plant need? And we built the system around it. We've got equipment that's automated. We've got a seeding machine that slides the trays in, drops the seeds, moves it into a germination chamber. The plants grow for a couple days. They move into a nursery area where they grow, for about a week and get a little bit bigger under a very specific light recipe, receiving the nutrients right to their roots. And then some of them move into another system where they grow up and get harvested. Many of them move into this automated system. It depends on the plant, though. They all end up in our harvest room where they get harvested through an automated harvest machine. They move into a cold storage area and then get packaged right there in the same facility into primarily ready-to-eat salads, but also, greens mixes, individual microgreens and herbs. And we sell right to the consumer. So a lot of people will buy right from planteddetroit.com. They set up a subscription. Their salads show up at their doorstep. But we also sell to hospitals. We sell to Henry Ford Health System. We sell through Plum Market and Meijer and the grocery stores. We sell to restaurants wholesale. You might find our greens on your salad at your local restaurant.
Tom, that is so cool. I mean, it's just so cool to have had this. So typically, I ask people what their biggest win was, and then also kind of, I guess, what the biggest lesson, because lessons are, they're hard, they're painful, but they also teach you the most too. Would you mind sharing those? First, maybe your biggest loss or your biggest lesson, and then what was the biggest win?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a tough one because there's so many mistakes. There's so many losses, and you got to learn from each and every one of them.
Yes.
Well, I did talk a lot about food safety. I think that's really important. We made some mistakes early on, and that's how I learned so much about this area. I surrounded myself with, people that understand microbiology. Again, not my background, but we had some food safety issues early on in the business. We identified them. We shut the business down for a period of time. That was really important to clean things up and redesign. And it was part of the learning experience. We didn't, we repositioned ourselves and rethought about how we were doing everything. And now it's integral to our business. Every business decision has to pass through that food safety aspect. And so that was a huge mistake that turned into a huge opportunity. And that's why I'm speaking to small businesses and other people in the industry about it. If they're not taking it seriously, they better.
Yes. And you turn the lesson into a win, which is great. And
it goes down to even the materials that we select for, all the growing components and the process. So how are we moving things? Which zones is it passing through? And are we testing? Can we test those zones and prevent any potential issues in the future? And so that's a cool aspect of, having some mistakes, but learning from them.
So you've checked a lot of boxes. I mean, I always kind of go, what are your boxes that you have to check to be successful, your success? And it seems like you're very kind of focused in your community. You're doing a lot for your community. You're teaching the young kids all about this new industry that's coming. I also feel like you're an innovator. So you're kind of creating these methods of different ways of doing it to improve it, to make it better. It's just you've just got a lot. in 4 years, it's so impressive that you've just done all of these things. And it's really, really, really cool. How far out can you ship?
So first off, thank you. I appreciate the accolades. Like I said, it's a grind. So it's nice to hear it. Everybody on the team is super humble. So we always think we're behind, right? We got to catch up. We got to grow faster. But it's really nice to hear that, hey, you're doing the right things. And I actually am often the one that has to tell the rest of the team that is, hey, you're doing the right things. Take it slow. Let's watch how things develop, and let's be smart about it. Let's be smart about scaling. So that's really important. In terms of shipping radius, it's about 30 miles currently. So from Detroit, that's reaching out to the Ann Arbor area. And then up where I live, which is Brighton, that's kind of the northwest corner of Metro Detroit. And then all of the Novi, Farmington, West Bloomfield, Birmingham area, as well as the Grosse Pointe and those zip codes along there. Our website's zip code enabled, so if you just log on planteddetroit.com, you're able to check to see if we ship to you, and if we don't, you can inquire about when we might, and we potentially will add it to the list. Logistics and distribution is another aspect that we are tackling. Like I said, we got 4 to 5 vans on the road every single day, zooming around, making deliveries to grocery stores, hospitals, restaurants, and people, everyday consumers. And we're thinking about that really hard. I think as the business scales and transforms, we're going to be taking a different approach to that distribution, so that we can make sure that we're timely and we're able to hit just about every area around the farm as quickly as possible.
So I'm just curious, just because the lights can be going on all the time at the farm, how many employees do you have? And is this around the clock operation?
So the plants don't stop, right? They're always growing. They just happen to be, in an assembly line, you're putting a vehicle together. The plants just happen to grow themselves. We just have to feed them the right environment. We've got about over 60 employees for our first facility. And we have a second facility that we're building, and we're looking at expanding to 2 more. So we've built up the teams in order to facilitate that sort of growth.
Holy cow. Okay. I'm in shock right now. I have like 22 employees, and I know it's tough. It's hard. But 60 employees in 4 years, that's amazing. And then you're going to be expanding and growing. I mean, that's phenomenal. Wow.
Absolutely. Let me just give you a little bit of that whirlwind. We went from 11 employees in April of 2020 as the pandemic was hitting. There was 11 of us. And we were in the process of building the full warehouse out. The automated systems and all of the improvements that we've done. We were right in the middle of that. And we were fortunate to keep operating through the pandemic as a critical infrastructure business. We were able to construct and complete that project by the end of 2020 and turn it on for 2021. And so we started hiring towards the end of 20. And that was just a crazy time, right? The world shut down. It did. We were able to kind of keep going and then come out of it even better. And so we had this huge facility built, and then we needed people and teams and processes to be developed. And so we hired, and we went from 11 to 60 in 2 years. And there's growing pains as part of that, right? Developing processes and standards of procedure, and it's a difficult period, but we've gotten through that, and now I feel like we're at a point where, all right, we've got the teams now built around ourselves. It's not just me, it's not just the leadership team. We all have our teams, and it's super important for the future.
Congratulations. I'm blown away again. It just because I know it takes a long time and to also build the culture, but you obviously have probably really wonderful, good people who see this as the future and see this and want to be part of it and want to learn. So,
Definitely. Culture is super important. I've always been laser focused on it. It's not something that you can dictate. It's something that's going to shape over time. But I do think it's probably one of the most important intangible assets of a business. If you can generate positive team culture and create problem solvers on a daily basis, oh man, your growth is going to be exponential. Now that's culture. In terms of, I think you had mentioned the facility if it runs 24 hours. So it essentially does 365 days a year. It's just our people are, only there for a certain period of the time. So we run multiple shifts, but the lights are on for 16 hours a day. The plants are being irrigated multiple times throughout that 24-hour period. The temperature and humidity is constantly being manipulated and controlled. And so the facility is constantly running, which is just it's a crazy thing to think about. At least for me, it was early on, to be able to step away and know that it's still running. And be able to sleep at night. There were a lot of sleepless nights when you're going to wake up to an irrigation failure or something, right? But now it's nice to be able to know we've made all those mistakes and we've accomplished so much that we can step away and the thing runs itself, and we can build more of these.
That's so exciting! Congratulations. In addition to the greens, do you see the company maybe dabbling in something else, or are you kind of have your niche and you're focused?
Definitely our niche and our focus is prepackaged salads. They're really popular right now, and we're going to lean into that component heavily. Leafy greens, herbs, microgreens, we're nailing those. We've got good market for it. We're able to achieve, reasonable prices and make a decent profit on it, which is business 101. We're looking at another category. It's edible flowers. That's an interesting category to me because, again, I'm not a foodie. And so I was like, when the team first brought it up as an idea, I was a little skeptical, but after looking, there's a market for it. In talking with our chef partners, they want them, they need them. They're hard to source. So we can grow these little flowers that are edible and they taste amazing. So going back to the taste, I'm like, what are these things going to taste like? But they're really unique. They're beautiful in color, and it's something that I think we'll put into our salads. Which I think the everyday consumer will be at first a little shocked by it. What is this?
They're going to love them. They're going to love them. That's amazing.
For sure.
Absolutely. I saw it. I can't remember. It was, one of those traveling shows where the chefs are traveling around the world and talking to a foodie and then talking to different chefs. And someone had gone out and, went into the forest and had found some edible flowers. And it was just such a wonderful thing that they were all talking about and how great they tasted. And then, of course, after you watch that, you're like, well, I want to try some. So people are definitely going to buy them. They're going to love them. So
I don't know if you were alluding to us potentially getting into, I don't know, something like cannabis.
Now my imagination's going like, is it possible to do dirt too? Like, what about roots? Like, what about potatoes? What about carrots? Like, that's kind of where I was going, but I have no idea because I don't know the background. I don't know the science. So I have no idea.
When I talk to my team, they pretty much say, hey, anything is possible.
Okay. I like your team. You have an awesome team.
Yeah. Anything is possible. But what's our priority and what's our focus?
Yes. Yeah.
And so, a lot of these things are possible. and we have grown some really unique things, but you still got to focus on the things that have a large enough market and a reasonable price to go after.
Okay.
That's business 101.
You're right.
But I do bring up cannabis for a reason, and a lot of people ask us why we don't grow it, because it's very profitable. It's a booming industry, and we've taken a focus on, let's leverage the cannabis industry for technology. Let's watch all the investment come into cannabis, and that is the economics that's changing. The investment came into the lighting technology used to grow cannabis, but now is used to grow food. The cost of the lights have come down. The efficiency's gone up. The tradespeople, 4 years ago, it would have been hard to find somebody to build a facility for what we want to do. Now, 4 years later, a lot of our construction partners have built cannabis facilities. So they understand, the tradesmen understand the electrical necessities, the HVAC systems, even the HVAC companies, the equipment providers. They're now creating equipment that's highly efficient for dehumidification or, managing these indoor environments. So it's really evolving really quickly. But that's my method of leveraging cannabis, is let the investment pour into the tech.
I see that, and that makes perfect sense. And that's a great way to handle that. And you're right. Everything is changing. It's evolving, and good for you. This is it's such a cool thing what you've created. I'm in awe, because I've been talking about the mall space and why aren't we doing farms and malls and and everyone just kind of looks at me like I'm a little crazy, but just talking to someone who's doing it is just, I find it so cool. It's just brilliant, and you've got all these brilliant people around you, so it's amazing. So congrats.
Well, it would really be fascinating to be able to walk through a mall as if it were a grocery store, right, with all of your food being grown in it.
I agree. I'm right there with you. So I typically end on, I guess, a quote or words you live by, and I just love your business mind, but you're also a visionary, and you've got to have something good for me here. I'm sure you do.
All right. I do have this business mindset, and, been researching markets for so many years. It's ingrained in me, and my wife absolutely hates that I talk about it anymore. But one of the biggest market participants is Warren Buffett. And, I've read a lot of his books early on in my career. That was something that I wanted to learn from, learn from somebody that's great. And one of the things that he says, or he said in an interview or at some point, was, I can buy a lot of things with money, but the only thing I can't buy is time. And that resonated really well with me. And I think it's important for anybody, especially entrepreneurs, to think about that in terms of your time. You're here on this earth for a limited amount of time. You don't know how long it's going to be. Cherish time, because you can't buy it. So what are you going to do with it? And I ask myself that a lot, is what am I going to do with my time? I've got priorities, I've got business, I've got family, I've got all of these things. How am I going to spend my time? And part of the reason why I built Planet Detroit is I want to spend my time creating something, building something that's going to outlive me, and do some good along the way. So I guess that's my 2 cents, is think about your time and don't take it for granted. It's limited, and you don't know how long it's going to last.
That makes me very happy. That's so great. Just if we all looked at it that way, and then what can I do? The good I can do in the world while I'm here, because it's such a short amount of time. And your kids must love what you do. They must love it.
Well, they eat a lot of salad now. They do. It's actually, my kids, my nephews, they come to the farm. I got to take them through basically a science class and teach them about what we're doing, how to grow plants indoors. That was really, I don't know what the right word is, rejuvenating. It was just to hear their questions, to see their eyeballs, and see, to them, this is going to be the way things are potentially. This is how you grow food.
Right. I do.
And it's pretty cool. It's very cool to see.
Awesome. Tom, thank you so much for your time today. And everybody, you have to go to the website, check it out, go to planteddetroit.com, see what's going on. It's just amazing. And I can't wait to see this happen everywhere. So thank you so much for coming today.
I appreciate it. It was a great conversation. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you to our listeners for joining us for today's episode. And thank you to my amazing producer, Emily Flanagan. She deals with all my shenanigans. Julia Augustino, thank you for the amazing composition that you have made for the podcast. And listeners, feel free to check us out on our social media channels. Don't forget to give us a 5-star review. And you can also visit us on fromthebasementup.com. Thank you so much.